How's it going, everybody? This is S3Tide, and this is going to be my week 2 prediction video. And first of all, I'd like to apologize because I don't have anything on the screen like I said I was going to have. But I'm really busy and I'm really tired, and I just want to make this video really fast before I go to sleep. And I'm going to go ahead and start it, my week 2 prediction video. First of all, on Thursday, we have Arizona at Oklahoma State, number 9 in the country. Arizona's not a team to sleep on, but Oklahoma State, they got a great offense, anchored by Brandon Weeden, their quarterback, and Justin Blackman, the great wide receiver who won the Blitnikoff last year. They have a great offense, but they struggled last week on defense. They have like 30-something points to a lower school, but I believe they're playing at Bedlam, the stadium. I can't remember, the nickname is Bedlam Stadium or something like that. But Arizona's not a team to sleep on. They have a great quarterback, but I believe Oklahoma State wins in a shootout, 42-28. Friday we have Missouri at number 21 Missouri at Arizona State. Let's see. Missouri last week they won 17-6 over a smaller school, and their quarterback James Franklin really struggled. And Arizona State's not a team to sleep on. They always have a great team. Their coach, they have a great coach, Dennis Erickson. Arizona State's a hostile place to play, and with Missouri struggling like they did last week, I believe they get upset by Arizona State, 17-14. Arizona State wins. Got my paper here. Let's see. Oregon State at Wisconsin. Oregon State lost last week to a Division II school. I'm sorry, my brain's dead, but I can't remember who they lost to. But they did lose last week. It's sad because Mike Riley is a really good coach, one of the most respected men in college football. And they're playing at number 8 Wisconsin. So Wisconsin played great last week. And I believe they kill Oregon State 34-14. Iowa State. This is going to be a great rivalry. This isn't really a big rivalry out of the state of Iowa, but the two schools always have a great game. I believe Iowa does not upset, but they beat Iowa State 21-14, just because I believe they're a little bit more better in the run game, and Iowa State's not as good as it has been in the past. But I wouldn't be surprised if Iowa State won, but I'm going with my gut. I believe Iowa beats Iowa State 21-14. Let's see. Central Michigan at Kentucky. I think it's an interesting game. 12 o'clock Eastern on ESPNU. Kentucky last week about lost to Western Kentucky. Was losing into I think in the second quarter to Western Kentucky. They won like 14-3. Apparently the offense isn't doing too great. Quarterback Morgan Newton struggled last week to get anything going. And Central Michigan always has a great team year after year. Well, not a great team, but a respectable team. But I do believe Kentucky pulls out the victory, but barely. I believe they beat Central Michigan 17-10. Next game, Mississippi State at Auburn. Mississippi State had a great game last week against Memphis. Auburn, as you know, they all struggled. I'll probably do a separate analysis for this game, but I do believe Mississippi State goes into Auburn and beats them 35-20. I believe I think it could possibly be worse than this, but I believe Auburn's always going to kind of come back in the end. I didn't think I knew they were going to win the last game. Just watching that onside kick, I was like, oh, I know they're going to get it. There's no way they're going to possibly lose to Utah State, but I do believe they lose this game 35-20. Don't be surprised if it's worse. Next game, Alabama at Penn State. This game's going to be interesting because AJ McCarron and Phillip Sims both go into their first road game starting. I'm not sure who's going to start, probably AJ. But they're going to be in a hostile environment, probably a whiteout, Happy Valley. Penn State also has a two quarterback system going. Both rich tradition teams, going to be clashing at each other. Old school football. Joe Paterno got 900 years old. But I do believe Alabama's just that much better. Even Penn State guys are saying they're not going to be close. But I do believe it's going to be close. I do believe AJ and Phillip Sims are going to struggle. But I do believe somehow Alabama pulls out the victory 28-17. A little bit closer than other people think, but 28-17 Alabama. Let's see. Virginia Tech at East Carolina. This could possibly be an upset. East Carolina upset Virginia Tech a few years ago, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happened again. But that's what I said last week against Virginia Tech and Appalachian State, and they killed Appalachian State like 66-20. But East Carolina gave South Carolina a run for their money last week, so don't sleep on them. But I do believe Virginia Tech wins 45-21. Next game, TCU at Air Force. TCU going to be down about the loss last week to Baylor. Air Force always has a great team year after year, running the option offense. But even though TCU's going to be down, I do believe they win 35-24. I believe it's going to be more of a shootout than people would think it'd be in the past. But TCU's defense isn't as great as it used to be. But I still believe they win. In this game, Cincinnati at Tennessee. Butch Jones, first-year head coach of Cincinnati. Always going to have a great offense with him. Tennessee kind of struggled last week. They scored like 20-something points, but I do believe they pull out the victory 24-17 over Cincinnati. Next game, South Carolina at Georgia. Georgia lost last week. South Carolina struggled last week, so it's going to be an interesting game. Let's see what I say. I believe South Carolina wins 35-28. Sorry, somebody just sent me a text message. Okay, sorry about that. But South Carolina struggled against East Carolina last week. They started Connor Shaw over Stephen Garcia. Then he came back and he brought them back to life, where they actually won against East Carolina. Georgia kind of struggled last week and lost against Boise, but Boise is actually going to be a pretty good team this year. Well, they're always a good team, but I wouldn't consider Georgia a bad team because they lost to Boise, but I wouldn't consider them great either. It'll be a close game. I actually think it's going to be kind of high scoring, but I do believe I wouldn't be surprised if you see Georgia pull the upset because it's at Georgia. It depends on how the quarterback plays for South Carolina, but I do believe they win 35-28 over Georgia. Here we go, last few games. I'm really tired. I'm sorry if this sucks. I'm just really, really, really tired. Next game, Ball State out at South Florida. Ball State last week pulled the upset over Indiana by a point, I believe it was. And South Florida played great last week against Notre Dame, pulled out the upset. They're ranked 22nd now. I think this is going to be a little bit closer game than South Florida expects, but I do believe they win 21-10 over Ball State. Next game, I'm pulling the upset. BYU at Texas. Texas struggled last week again on offense. BYU struggled, but they pulled the upset over Ole Miss. I believe they pulled another upset at Texas. I believe they win 13-10. Low scoring game, maybe a few defensive scores, but I believe BYU pulls the upset 13-10. Next game, Houston at North Texas. I just want to throw this game in here because I believe Houston's going to be a really good team this year. I predicted them to beat UCLA last week, and they did. I just expect them to win 45-7 and roll over North Texas, even though it's at North Texas. Let's see. Utah at USC. This is going to be a close game, but I do believe it's USC. It's at USC. I believe they're gonna pull the win, 20-16 over Utah, and that's on Versus, and I don't get that anymore. I don't know why. It's stupid. DirecTV is really stupid, and Versus doesn't come on anymore. Next game, Connecticut at Vanderbilt. Connecticut's down this year. Randy S still left for Maryland, who was on TV last night against Miami in those terrible, terrible uniforms. But Vanderbilt surprised me last week. I told y'all, even though Elon was like a Division II school, I expected Vanderbilt to struggle. They didn't really struggle. They put up like 40 points, I believe it was, over Elon. So their offense kind of surprised me. And Connecticut's struggling this year. They struggled last week, but they still put out the victory. But I still believe somehow Vanderbilt will pull out the victory. It's at Vanderbilt. I'm sure there'll be a few crazy Commodore fans there. And I believe Vanderbilt's kind of be a low-scoring game. I believe they win 21-14. Next game, Notre Dame at Michigan. Michigan's going to be running the West Coast offense. I believe they're going to struggle a little bit. They didn't struggle as bad as I thought they were last week against Western Michigan. But Notre Dame lost last week. They'll be coming for revenge. They came back at the end. I believe Brian Kelly will have them ready, and I believe they'll go into the big house and beat Michigan 24-20. I believe this is going to be the first defensive test for Michigan and that new offense with Denard Robinson playing the West Coast offense, which doesn't fit them quite well. But I do believe Notre Dame wins 24-20. Last game I'm doing, Boston College at Central Florida. Central Florida is definitely not a team to sleep on. They could be right up there, playing in a decent bowl this year. UCF is always going to have a decent team. They have a pretty good quarterback. Can't think of his name right now. He's a runner. I think his name is like Jeffrey Godfrey. I'm not sure if that's right, but I believe they playing at Central Florida. I believe they get upset by Central Florida, 17-20. They lost last week to Northwestern, even though Dan Perza wasn't starting for Northwestern, but still believe Central Florida pulls the upset over Boston College 20-17. That is it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'm probably gonna have an analysis of Alabama and Penn State and Mississippi State at Auburn. I'm not sure. Hopefully I will, but if you see that in your sub box, be sure to click it, and thanks and goodbye.